Stano, are you speaking? Because we can't hear you.
I can see my microphone was not working. I have disconnected it. Now I can use computer direct.
Okay. Now
So hi everyone. Yeah. Today's topic is about why atheists go back to religion. And initially, I couldn't expect an atheist can go back to where he came from or she came from. So for me, I was thinking the atheist is only the default. They can only turn back to religion when there is enough evidence. But my surprise is I find several atheists have turned back to religion. And that is why we want to see the reason why they turn to the religion and whether those reasons they can hold the water or how we can see those reasons. Is it reasonable or just fake reason or just the not enough reason for somebody to turn back to the religion? By the end of this discussion, maybe some of us will have turned back to the religion or have become very strong with their position after realizing those reasons are weak, or if they find it strong, maybe they may turn back to the religion. So if there is a Christian or a Muslim here, I think you will have a fertile land now. So I want to give some few reasons why the people leave religion. Then I can see that I can hear from the member what are the reasons that you have already found that cause people to leave religion. And am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I'm not using mic, so I expect my voice to be very low. So there are various reasons why some atheists may return to religion. And number one, I want us to start with. I have 5 reasons. Number one is life change. Number 2 is social pressure. Number 3 is intellectual reason. Number 4 is personal experience. And the last, and not the least, is emotional or spiritual need. So I want us to start with the life changing. How can life change to cause a certain atheist to go back to religion? Example, major life event like marriage. Marriage can cause a atheist to go back to religion. For example, maybe you feel your partner is not comfortable with your position or with your worldview. So you decide to change for the sake of your partner or for the sake of that love or for the sake of family, can be also in your family, also for the sake of your parenthood, or personal crisis can trigger a re-evaluation of one's belief and lead some to reconsider religion. But I think the major point is marriage for the sake of your partner, and the other point is parenthood. Because you fear maybe your parent or you fear your family, so you decided to go back to your religion or to the religion. That is according to my view about life changing. So I want to see, how do you think about this life changing? Can life change cause somebody to go back to religion? And how can we avoid such thing or such influence from the either marriage or from the parent or from any personal crisis? We are dealing with the life change. When a life change For example, maybe you want a partner, you are looking for a partner, but you feel as if that partner will not be comfortable to marry an atheist. So you decide to convert to Christianity or to Islamic so that you may be able to win that partner or you may be able to live with that partner. Is that a good reason, or are there any other kind of the reason in our life that can cause person to go back to religion? Because I have found even some people who are not married, they are trying to change so that they may be able to win their girlfriend or boyfriend. So I don't know what are the whether those are the good reason, and whether those people who do that, they do it sincerely or they are just pretender to be a religion. So we can hear from Mastro Eston, then Morioki. Eston?
So the question is the other reasons that can make someone
The question
change.
is about you can give example of the things that change in life that cause person to change to a religion, and whether those reasons hold the water, and if you can be able to give how we can be able to avoid those things, it's okay.
So one of the reasons about life, there's an example I can give. There's a certain musician in Tanzania. I don't know what his name, but he was a famous musician. He's still a famous musician in Tanzania. I don't know what is his name. It's not Jum. There's a famous certain musician in Tanzania. He was not a strong, faithful. He was not strong. So he was saying that mambo ya dini yeye hayuko, but he was not into atheism, or yes, he was just living a free life. But then one day he got really sick. He was taken to Europe. He was very ill. He was taken to Europe. He was treated. He faced a near death. He that I don't know. I'm not sure if it's a near death experience, but he feared for his life. He really feared for his life. So then, yes, he went to Europe. He was treated. He came back. He was now healthier, and his health continued to improve. So now, in such a situation, uh, he began to become now more now a Christian now. Okay, he turned. Okay, he said he's no longer into that free life. He wants to be close to Jesus. I don't know. So that he thought that's a punishment from God, that because that sickness, it was painful, and he really feared for his life. So he became a strong Christian. So things like those if something like that happens to you, some people can say that, I don't know, this is a punishment. This was a punishment from God. So let me repent, and I I turn back to Him. So those things, those fear of unknown, this fear of unknown things can make someone turn back to this religion things. And also another thing I can add is, I also know my friends. I have okay. Don't think this is a it's a good reason because they turned from Christianity to Islam. But okay, I'll give another reason the next time I speak. But the other reason is about the same thing of fear of unknown, because this question really, some atheists, they get a problem answering where this world came from. So when some people don't really have an answer, they might go back again to Christianity. But But my reason there was, first of all, maybe if some bad thing happens to you, and then I don't know, people can telling you that I prayed for you, and as you are being treated, I pray for you, and it was only God who did this, and some atheists might get convinced, and they turned back.
Very nice. So sometimes fear can cause somebody to go back to the religion when you pass through those difficulties, maybe it's deceits, and then that fear cause you to turn to religion. So let's hear from Morioki.
Thanks, Tanu. For me, what I'll say, that sense of community. Because I remember I left church when I was a teenager, and I grew up Catholic. So my parents told me that even if I'm not a Christian, I joined the youth. It was a Holy Family Basilica, Holy Family. So I was an atheist, but I joined them. Then when I joined them, I used to go after Mass. After the Mass is over, I used to go and hang with them. Then they noticed, how come you don't come to church? So somebody questioned me after I came to join them. How come you don't come to church? So I was somewhat embarrassed. I was put on spot. So I started going to church now. I became part of the church now, just to be with them. Yeah, I became an altar boy. Yeah, I used to be an altar boy. Then even during Easter, I was there carrying a cross with the altar boys, just showing about the story of Jesus. I was part of the act of carrying the cross, Jesus falling, getting up. I was part of that, but it was because of a sense of community. I was looking for a group also, and I liked being with them. So I ended up going to church, and I became a church goer. But I realized I was pretending, so I left eventually again. I left for good. Thanks.
So you never experienced those forces again?
I
Or
did,
pressures?
of what?
How do you cope with that situation? Because initially you are fearing and you pretend to go to that.
Yeah, but I liked being around a community. I liked being around people. It was good being with them every Sunday. So now you end up getting sucked in. Now you're doing Bible study with them because of the sense of community. Yeah, that's the reason.
What about today?
Now today now I can't, because I feel like now it's not true. It's not the truth. So I can't pretend anymore. I can't pretend because I'm living a lie and I'm following a lie. So I can't go back because it's not something real.
And is there any the negative effect by doing that?
Yeah, I feel like I was a hypocrite. I feel like I'm pretending, even like
I'm talking
carrying
about
the cross.
today now. I'm talking
Today,
about today. Do you
yeah.
have any negative effect because of not pretending anymore?
No, 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 no. Now, and I feel very free. I feel free now.
So they don't isolate you.
Okay. If I had to call them, I call them sometime. I call them to confess that I was just being with them for the community. I wasn't a true Christian. So I called some of them, and they understood. Yeah, and
Okay.
they're my friends. They're still my friends.
Okay, fine. That is good. Let's hear from Dorcas, then Infinite.
Okay. Wow. So much has been said. I'll try my best to address all and give my contribution, but I'll start with my contribution because Expert Sister now has asked us what life changes can cause an atheist to go back to God. And the example that comes to mind is that of Ayan Harsi Ali. She, at some point, was called the fourth horsewoman of atheism, of new atheism, alongside Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, and Dan Dennett. She was very prominent. Even up to now, she's known for her anti-Islam sentiment. She's really, really opposed to Islamism. And she's been very useful in the new atheist movement. So it was a shock to us when we heard that she has reconverted to God, just a different God, not the Muslim God. Now she's gone to a Christian God, but it's a God nonetheless. There were several reasons, and maybe I'll bring her up in the course of the discussion again, because she has really been highlighted by many people, including one of our resident Christian apologists here. He's called Charles Wandalo. For those of you who are new, we don't like having an echo chamber. We invite everybody, and if you're a believer, come to the discussion and defend your position in this Zoom meetings and sometimes in the physical hangouts. We invite them. So Charles Wandalo is always citing Ayan Hashi Ali as an example of an atheist who went back to God, and the reason why we shouldn't dismiss the concept of God. Now, there are several reasons why she went back, but one of them that relates to life changes is the one on alcoholism and mental health issues. During one of the interviews she held with an atheist called Alex O'Connor, he now has a podcast known as Within Reason. Previously, he was going by the username Cosmic Skeptic. So Alex O'Connor interviewed her, and she said she was down in the dumps. She was depressed. She had given up on life. She was hopeless. She was desperate. She was an alcoholic. She had reached her end of the rope. She had tried medication, antidepressants, they didn't work. She had even tried a bit of therapy, it didn't work. So she spoke to another therapist who suggested that she might be spiritually bankrupt. And the therapist floated the idea of the Christian God. So that's one of the reasons that she gave. She says that the Christian God was different from the Muslim God because the Muslim God is mean and legalistic and vindictive, whereas the Christian God is forgiving and loving. And she wanted that sense of acceptance. That's why she resonated with the Christian God and believed. So the $1 million question there is that rational? Is that a good reason to go back to God? And obviously no. When you are depressed, when you are mentally compromised, that is not the time to make a life-altering decision. You are doing it out of desperation. You're not going with truth. You are going with a crutch, that something that will just give you comfort. And at the end of the day, Christianity or religion is not the only source of comfort. Why do we need a source of comfort that is hinged on lies and falsehoods? There are other sources of comfort that are based on truth. Let's go for those ones. So no, even if you're depressed, even if you're an alcoholic, I don't think that is sufficient enough to go back to God. Now, on what Eston spoke about and what ex-Pastor Tano cited, let me just address them really quickly. Eston mentioned this friend who maybe he was non-religious, but he wasn't very familiar with atheist ideas. You know, I like to call them non-skeptic atheists. You know, you can be an atheist, but you're not a skeptic. Okay? So you're not really familiar with the elements of a good argument and why you should believe things that you should believe. You know, they're not critical thinkers, those people. They just decided at some point to leave God, but they really didn't think critically about the decision. So that's what I would classify that friend of yours who had a difficult situation and their life was on the brink. They almost lost their lives. So later they just said that it must be God who intervened. But if they were a skeptic, if evidence is the benchmark against which they judge certain situations.
I said it was this Tanzanian musician is called Omi Dimples.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My bad.
Not really.
My bad. I think there was a time you also mentioned a friend, like the one for the Muslim. He went from the Muslim to something else. So now I conflated. Okay. Thank you for that correction. So the musician, the Tanzanian musician, I think he was not a skeptic when he jumped to that assumption that because my life was saved, it means that it is God. Where is this God? Why is he not visible? Why is he hiding? There's still no evidence to link those two activities together. You are having a near death, maybe a near death experience, and you are surviving it, and there being a God. Those two are not related. There's no direct cause and effect relationship there. This person doesn't understand that principle of cause and effect. So they just jump to a conclusion that, oh, it must be God, yet there's no proof that it is him. So yeah, that's what I would say to that case study that El Maestro has highlighted. But then I would like to pose a question. It might be slightly different, but it's still related to that element. There are people who have near-death experiences. There are people who experience some mystic thing where they see a bright light, they get a sense of clarity, they see their loved ones sometimes, and then in other cases, they see Jesus or a religious figure in that near-death experience when they're in a coma or when they almost died. You know, maybe their heart stopped beating, but they still had brainwave activity, and then they come back. Yeah. So I'd like to ask the members, how would you respond to that? If somebody tells you they had a near-death experience and they saw Jesus in the near-death experience, is that a reason to go back to God? Now, finally, on this example that ex-Pastor Stano gave of somebody going back to God because of a marriage partner, I think that is insincere and hypocritical. I think you are living your life. When you do that, you're living your life for your partner. You're not living your life for you. And why should your partner, the religious one, get a higher priority in the matter? Don't your views count also? Why is it that it's always the atheists that back down, that always bend over backwards for the believers? This is bullying. You know, the way they have those verses, do not be unequally yoked to unbelievers. The Muslims say they cannot marry an infidel. So you, the atheists, just succumb and say you will become one. I think that person would just be putting on an appearance. It would be a facade, but deep down, they are not genuinely believing. And I think it is a very it's a very unsatisfactory life to live where you are pretending, you're being hypocritical. Yeah. So that's what I have to say for now, but please answer that question on the near-death experience of seeing Jesus.
Thank you. Let's hear from Infinite.
Okay, so what I will say, it all comes down to fear. The first 7 years of a kid, when kids are developing, that's the when they introduce religion. And even after that, they have experienced that and all the traumatic events that you are told every time you have to look. You see the devil is after you. You see all this magic stuff we tell kids that's not even real. That stuff affects a kid very much, because the first 7 years, that's when the brain is developing. And a few months ago, I saw an article that was published. They said that it's possible. Yeah, they say there's evidence that religion and exposing kids to religion hinders brain growth. That's something that scientists have said. They come out openly and said they have said it themselves. And that's why kids, I think it should be like alcohol. Introduce kids to religion after the age of 18. And if you do that, then religion will die, because after that the kid has already developed critical thinking and all that. So it all comes down to fear. Because let's say a near-death experience will make you turn to God. Everything that will make you become irrational, because why do we become atheists? Because we follow the evidence and we follow critical thinking. When this doesn't make sense. That's what the evidence. So unless someone offers evidence, and that will never happen, because they talk about so much stuff, and you can take a Christian to the moon and they will still deny. They will still say you can't go past the firmament. It's crazy that a person, I see people, someone is on the internet texting through the phone. It doesn't know how we get our coordinates, everything, the North Pole. That's real. That is not flat. But someone will argue with you about that stuff. They are using the phone, they're texting. They don't know how we are using the GPS signals, how the satellites work, and they just ignore the evidence. And that's why it's called faith. So it all comes down to being irrational. And when someone is turning back to religion, they just say to be irrational. And what causes you to be irrational is indoctrination, mostly. You are too damaged. You can't be fixed. You are past the. You are too much. You are too far gone. And the second reason will only be fear. You know, everything comes down to that, fear. That's the only reason we'll make an atheist turn back to religion. But if you follow the evidence, you'll always find yourself back to atheism. You know, so it all comes down to fear. And if you will change because of your spouse, then deep down and how you see the world won't change. You're still an atheist deep down. So even if you label yourself, you'll also see the things around you. And if you see this, it's very hard to turn back to Christianity or any other religion after you become an atheist, because you have already seen and you can't unsee what you've already seen. And after that, you go beyond atheism, and now you can see the curtains behind everything. You can see everything, governments and how everything works and how we feed off each other. And now you're like, what's the purpose of life? And does life really have to exist? Because as long as you are living, pain and misery will always follow you, know? The only way all this can stop is when you die. And that's why I don't think this experiment of life even deserve to be. And that's why I don't think, even if there was a God, then he wouldn't be a good God, you know? Because all the pain and suffering that's going on, and things that cannot be fixed. And if you're thinking critically, you know that there are some things that can never be fixed. If Africa thinks they can rise, that will never happen. The only way Europe can remain to be where they are is because we are down here. So yeah, everything connects, and if you connect the dots, you will find that it's just a deep hole that we have dug over time, and it's just to come out from that. Let me just there.
Thank you very much, Infinite. Let's now hear from David. Then we go to the next topic. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Stano. Let me start with why I leave religion in the first place. So you left religion because you had questions about religion. Then you left religion and you became a skeptic or an atheist, and you were questioning and reasoning. And then you stop questioning, you stop reasoning, and you go back to faith. That's very confusing, because the first question is, how did you leave in the first place? Did you ever leave? That would be my first question, because if you left because you were questioning and you were reasoning that this thing here doesn't make sense, this one here doesn't, I want more information on this natural source, natural process here, then you're meaning you are going to go back and say, now I have answers to this natural process. Because that's exactly what religion does. Religion says that we know we have the answers. So you're going back and saying you now have the answers. That one, I have a lot of problems with that. But I can quote something else that I still find attractive in religion. And it is the choir. It's the music. No, forget about the music that yeah, I'm old, I'm older generation. So there used to be choir, and there are different choirs, and the arrangement of the music was very, very attractive. And when you entered a church and you found that music playing, it was very, very attractive. That is beside other rituals. But for me, I found the music very, very attractive. And up to today, I still listen to some of the music from my childhood. I was baptized at a couple of weeks. So yeah, I was dipped into Latin music at some point. I found that I liked Latin music. But the thing is this, even if it is not religious music, any good music, call it Vivaldi, call it reggae, call it Mwomboko, call it Kakai Kilonzo, if the music is well played, it will do the same thing. That's what I realized. I realized that it does the same thing that all the music across the board does for me. It calls something in me. Am I going to go to religion because a choir sings well? Nah. I can just sit at home and listen to Mozart or Bach, or listen to reggae. Buryuki, don't go there. So I've got some questions for that, and I can understand why somebody would go because of some of the things, probably because of community, because we still don't have a lot of community of atheists and agnostics, so that can be attractive, and the music might also be attractive to some people. But once you understand how the music plays to your emotions, then you don't have to go there. You can play reggae at home. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you,
And
David.
David, my question on near-death experience.
Okay, we'll come to that, because as I have said, we are dealing with the life changes, although it may affect that life near-death experience. After life changes, we are coming to social pressure. I think even you, David, you have mentioned about social pressure, then intellectual reason, then personal experience, where the near-death experience can fit in. And the number 5, the last, is emotional or spiritual need. Although as I was listening, most of you have mentioned almost everything here, but let's continue. We are in life changes. For those who have raised their hand, they can combine life changes with the social pressure now because of time. But for social pressure, I can just say in some community, there may be strong social pressure to conform to religious norm, which can lead some atheists to return to religion to fit or to avoid ostracism. So let's hear from Julius. Julius the keeper. It's your turn. Then we can go to Chirwe as Julius prepare. The topic is about how the life can change somebody to go back to religion, and also about the social pressure, although most of you have mentioned about the social pressure.
Okay, thank you. So I think essentially in terms of how someone's life can change, we first have to look at their upbringing. So I think a lot of people who are religious and then become atheist and then go back to religion, they might be those people who they don't grow up in strict religious households, like where maybe religion is just by the way, like, you know, they're casual Christians, for example, and then for one reason or another, they decide to become atheist, and then you see they become atheist not through critical thinking, but just by happenstance, and then they happen to encounter Christians who are capable of giving them more detailed information about religion. So they learn more in depthly about religion. So they see a side of religion where um, they hadn't seen it before growing up. I think that's a life circumstance that can change them to become more religious. And in terms of the social pressure, I think it's where they experience a lot of cognitive dissonance, because cognitive dissonance is where you have two or more conflicting beliefs and you end up needing to choose one um, in order to resolve the pressure that you're feeling. So people have thought to themselves, they're like, hey, you know, this religion, it's been there for like 2,000 years. You know, they fall for the lies of Christianity, like, oh, it's been there for 2,000 years. The Bible is inerrant, you know, 66 books across, I don't know, like 600 years or something like that. And you know, like, I don't know, like 2 billion people are Christian, or is it 3 billion? So I think that social pressure, they ask themselves, like, oh, is someone saying that I'm muted? Or is that?
No, you are okay,
Oh, no.
although
Oh,
your voice is
all
too low.
just one moment. Yeah. So I think basically they're just with the cognitive dissonance, like they ask themselves, like, why is it so many people believe? Like, if religion is wrong, then how is it so many people can believe? Like, 2 billion people can't be wrong. So they're making that fallacy where they appeal to masses for the right answer. And another thing is, I think Christians have very strong convictions. You know, like when you meet a Christian, they talk to you as if God is real. Like, there's no doubt in their mind. Like, you know, I think a lot of atheists are more agnostic, so they'll tell you they think the possibility of there being a God is unlikely. But a Christian would be like, God is real and he's done XYZ for me. Like, there's no question in their mind. So in terms of social pressure, I think that's another way people are persuaded. They're persuaded by the conviction that other believers have. So yeah, I would say those are mainly the elements of life changes and social pressure. I think another life change would be if something, if let's say someone is in a bad situation and they become very desperate, and you know, one of the stages of grief is bargaining. So they try to bargain with God. They're like, please God, if my if my mom doesn't die, then I'll start believing in you or something like that. So I think that could be another life change that could happen to someone. Like, if let's say they're in that situation and their mom miraculously gets healed, then they'll start believing in God again. I think in the show Young Sheldon, there was an episode like that where Sheldon was questioning religion, and obviously he's a smart person and he was doubting religion, but then his dad had like a heart attack or something, and then he started praying and his dad survived. So I think that's why he stayed religious or something like that. So yeah, I think that would be another scenario where people are in a bad situation and they pray for help, or or even if they don't pray for help, they might get support. Um, they might get support from uh, the Christian community. So they could be in in a state of desperation. Like, let's say someone is a drunkard or a drug addict and they want to turn their life around, and then someone comes and tells them, oh, you know, God will help you get clean, or God will show you the way. and the Christian community is very supportive. I think that's one thing we need to copy from them, is how supportive they are. So they managed to get clean, and they managed to stay on the path. I don't know if it was Dorcas or someone else who was saying they had a friend who used to be like that, like used to be like a drunkard, but because of becoming Christian, he says he never touched alcohol again, or some story like that. So yeah, I think those are the social pressures and life circumstances that can lead someone back to religion. So I guess the last one would be like a spouse. A spouse, for example, like let's say you're an atheist, but you don't really mind. You're more of like agnostic, or you don't think there's a God, but to you religion is not a big deal. And then you fall in love with a Christian, or you fall in love with a Hindu, or you fall in love with a Muslim. And they say the only way we can get married is if you convert, right? And to you, religion is not a big deal. It's like, oh, you don't think there's a God, but you really love this person. So if being with this person means you have to believe in that God, then I guess you go ahead and you do it. And I guess it could also be moving to a new country where you meet new friends. Like maybe if you moved into the Middle East, you could end up in a situation where it's more convenient for you to be part of a certain religion, like Islam, as opposed to being an atheist, where I think under Sharia law it's illegal for some people to be atheist. I don't know if that's deconversion or it applies to foreigners, but you might be heavily influenced to embrace Islam in certain communities. And I think it applies to other religions around the world. So those are all the social pressures and life circumstances I can think of. Thank you.
Well said. So I don't think whether the Julius you are able now to speak.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, proceed. Proceed, Julius. It's your turn. I think there is a problem with your mic. You are muting and unmuting continuous. Let's hear from the Murioki. Okay, continue, Julius.
okay. So I was saying on the near-death experience, we can't rely on that, because during the near-death experience, you find that somebody is deprived of oxygen. You are also deprived, or the brain is deprived of oxygen and glucose, and at that moment, the brain cells start dying. So anything that you report to have experienced, it is the brain trying to flash back, and really it is filled with illusions, and your beliefs are the major thing that keeps your memories. Like you are going to remember something that is either religious, you're going to remember your families, you're going to start seeing something like light or something like that, because at that moment your brain is illusional, and your brain cells are dying, and its function is being it's stopping, and that's why we cannot rely on that. And so I don't think the near death experience is a very reasonable, it's not very reasonable for someone to say we can rely on it. Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, Julius. Morioki?
Okay, thanks, Anu. I think what I can say to Dorcas, it's just 5 words, no, 6 words in fact. The human mind is a liar, and there's evidence to prove it. The human mind is a liar. It creates so many lies. That's the reason we have all these near-death experiences. I saw Jesus. That's the mind lying to us. And then also, Ndebe, about music. And I think you made my point. What I said about music. Even me, I know somebody who tried to convert our family with music. He came to our house with very good Christian songs. They were so nice that he'll almost get sucked in, go back to church because the music is so nice. It sounds so sweet. So music will be like a trick to convert you back to God. And then also Chilwe, you say that people say that how can so many people be wrong? But at the same time, why are there so many religions? Yes, most people are religious, but why are there so many? And that's your point. The religions there are so many, which leaves a question mark. Thanks.
Okay, fine, Morioki. So we are going to hear from Dorcas, then Eston, but before that, I want just to give some reason. There is a famous person, C.S. Lewis. He highlighted the reason why he gone back to Christianity, and he claimed that the first thing was from the influence from his friend. His friend were trying to convince him. They had some conversation, some debate, and he ended up turning to Christianity. Another reason, he found that there is intellectual argument for the existence of God and the truth of Christianity were very compelling. Another thing he was talking about is the problem of evil. He feels Christianity offers a coherent explanation of the problem of evil. Another thing he deal with is moral argument. He came to believe that the objective moral value existed, so they point to the existence of moral giver. So if there is objective moral, it means there is existence of moral giver. Another thing he claimed, the thing that we are dealing with is personal experience. He described sense of joy and the fulfillment that he experienced when he embraced Christianity. So the moment he gone back to Christianity, he experienced sense of joy and the fulfillment. So that was the reason that the C.S. Lewis was giving. So let's hear from Dorcas.
Okay, quick one. Let's Pastor know. I'm wondering, for near-death experiences, we've said it will come towards the end under personal experiences, Ama.
Personal experience is number 4, and now we are in number 2, social pressure.
Okay, Sawa. I will respond to what Julius the KP said, and I'll give my take on near-death experiences at that point. For now, let me stick to.
Although to try to minimize the time, you can also combine with the other, because the next point is intellectual reason. Because some atheists may encounter new argument or evidence that challenge their atheism belief and lead them to reconsider the possibility of a higher power through that intellectual reason.
Okay, so for intellectual reasons, the example you gave of C.S. Lewis, you mentioned objective morality, you mentioned sense of joy, and what other thing did you give? What other?
First of all, was from influence about the intellectual. There is problem of evil.
Aha.
He never give the detail about why he feel Christianity offer coherent explanation. He also deal with the moral argument. He came to believe that objective moral value existent. So they point to existence of Morongiva.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
The other is about
I've
personal
jotted.
experience. Yeah.
Okay. I've jotted those two intellectual reasons, which are the problem of evil and objective morality.
Yeah.
Now, I have about 4 points to make, and some of these points are rebuttals, or just not rebuttals per se, but responses to what some of you have mentioned, including what Chilwed spoke about and what Ndeve and Morioki spoke about. So Ndeve and Morioki said that some people go back to God because of the music. You know, we can downplay it. We can make it look like it's so trivial and so superficial. But true to Ndeve's words, that is one of the best experiences in the church. Me, I used to be a Pentecostal, and our choir was the ish. Hey, they used to bring the house down, and you know they would sample African American R&B lyrics. Hey, you feel like William McDowell has come to Kenya in the form of one karaoke or one Otieno. Eh? They would bring the house down. It was magnificent. I think the church really does a lot when it comes to cultivating talent. So what are the solutions? I don't think we need to
And
bring this.
Dorcas,
Yes.
maybe if I also remind you, there is a certain time in our hangout, you are saying that even though you are an atheist, you still listen to Masi Masika. There is a song by Masi Masika. I remember.
You
And
had me.
you still love that song. I still remember until now.
Nakwambia, a good voice is a good voice, regardless of the crap that they are singing about, because we know God is a fictional character, but they have a good voice, yeah. And the church does a good job of cultivating talent, giving people the resources, the band, the pianos, the instruments, and the rehearsals to cultivate their talent. So this is a call to action on our part as secularists. I have a vision for this society that someday, maybe 5 years from now, will be close to 1,000 members, that we'll need to hire out a hall when we are meeting. And when we do those meetings, instead of having the icebreakers, currently, by the way, our hangout is coming soon in about 2 weeks' time. We'll go outdoors. So we usually do some icebreaker games because the group is small. But in such a huge setup, we need entertainment. We need some good musicians with good quality voices. And we need to start young because that's what the church does. You know, they train those people in their talents at a tender age. And that's why they are so professional and so excellent at their job. So I think that's something we need to work on. We need to give platforms to talented people among us, and we need to have our own alternatives to these secular alternatives. Of course, I don't listen to gospel music as I used to when I was in the church. Because like when I listen to those lyrics and I'm like, no, that's a lie. The Holy Spirit did jack shit. Pardon my French. But he did not do anything. So I start arguing with the musician. So I don't listen to it. But you know, when you're in the matatu, you can't help it. Sometimes you're even in the club and they play a gospel song and she's got a good voice. So you find yourself bobbing your head. Yeah, so I think that is one area that we need to work on as a secular community of nursing talent, musical talent amongst us, and giving people the platform to express themselves artistically. Then, in close association with this, is the issue of community, which Morioki highlighted, and also Chilwave talked about. I think when we think of community, we need to realize that community, as offered by the church or by religion, is a form of bait. It's how they nab you. they don't have evidence for their claim. They don't have evidence for God or any other supernatural entities. But what they have is community. So they fulfill that innate need within you, and then they call it God. You know, the example that Chilwell was mentioning, yes, that was me. I have a friend who was an addict. He was addicted to those powder drugs. I don't know if it was heroin or cocaine. And he also used to take a couple of he used to take a cocktail of drugs. And when he was in the dumps, down in the dumps, and he was at his lowest point, a pastor in a revival meeting called out to him. Okay, he didn't mention his name specifically, but he said he had those loudspeakers, and he said, if you're out there and you are feeling all alone, you are feeling like no one cares about you, come to the church now. God is calling you. So he went there because he was desperate and he was alone. He had been kicked out of his house, etc. And then he went there, and those people showed him love. They showed him support. And then they claimed that that is God. It's not God. It's people. It's not evidence for God. It's just evidence for people and what community can do. Okay? So it's the same call to action I would make to us as atheists. We need to support each other when we are down. We need to give each other mental support such that they don't have to run to a mythical entity for that. Yeah, so that's what I would say on community support. Now,
Yeah, thank
this
you.
one of
You
wait,
can
I'm
you
not
can conclude. You can conclude because you have
okay.
spoken more than 80 minutes.
Oh, okay. So the one for intellectual arguments, since I've spoken for 8 minutes, let me not touch it because I think it needs to be given proper attention. I think that one of objective morality and the problem of evil, I think I'll address them in my next contribution. But overall, what I would say on this issue of community pressure is that these people are suffering from a logical fallacy called the false cause fallacy, where you attribute a positive result or any result, any effect to the wrong thing. So if somebody was able to find support, love, and acceptance, and that support, love, and acceptance, you are attributing it to God. It's not God, it's the people. So you are engaging in a false cause fallacy. People need to understand how to think critically and to apportion blame to the real cause, not to what is purported or what is claimed. That's what I have to say for now. Let me continue later.
Thank you very much for those points. In fact, you have highlighted many things you have. So let's hear from Eston, then Devin.
Okay, so the solution to this music, when you hear anything about gospel, just sanitize your, just put a secular song and sanitize your ears. That's what I do. And even when I'm in this matatus, of course, you cannot control the music that some matatus play, but when I hear they're playing a gospel song, I have no earphones. After I come off the bus, I sanitize my ears, start listening to a secular song, and forget about those songs that I've had. If I have earphones right there, I just put my earphones on. That's why I always carry my earphones when I'm in a matatu, because you can find some matatus, they just play this gospel music. Okay, the other thing I wanted to ask Stano, mine was actually to ask, so what about social pressures? Does money involve social pressures? or money is not about social, is not part of the social pressures?
I think it's also part of social pressure because you depend on the people, either you depend on the
Okay.
parent or it's term of your business. So you need a customer.
Oh,
And
okay.
you
Then
think,
then
yeah.
then the reason I can give is yes, and some okay. I don't think it is genuine, but you know, some artists they can turn back to God so that they can go and make money, because you know Christians they're very easy to manipulate when it comes to finances, and you can decide to come, and and you know, when Christians say that, I don't know, there is joy in heaven when one person turns back to God than 99 others who are there. So when they hear that you are an artist, and then you turn back to God, that like this is something, this is something big for them. So you can even open your own church, and they'll flock there because they'll see this is a big miracle. They'll flock there, and you can extort money from them. Like
On that, can
yes,
we say most of the people who are turning to religion are not genuine, return to the religion,
they
and just
they are
pretender
not.
because of social press and the other reasons?
Yes, they are not. Like this guy said, I don't know, he said Mainga. Said Mainga, he turned back because of money. This church that I don't know, he went there to turn to it. It was all a scheme. Seth Mainga is still an atheist. It was all a scheme by the pastor of that church, him and Mumia. Mumia was also part of the scheme. They made this so that now that pastor, you know, when it was all over the country now that there's the secretary of of AIK, he was an atheist. Now he has come back. God, now the Christians, they see that this pastor is very strong. Yeah, yeah? He can really, even if he can make a stand back to God. This is a strong church. I think that he got some new followers, new members in that church. I think that was it, that was how it was. But Seth Mainga, he is still where how he was. But you know, now that scheme was to hit headlines and to also make money. And even me, you know, I don't know if I've thought about trying this. You know, this session in some churches where new members are called in front there to introduce themselves in front of the church. I don't know. Some churches like Catholic, there is no, but there is this Protestant churches. Some these Protestant churches, a lot of them, when now the pastor has already preached. There is like my church that I used to go to, Friends Church. We had this session where visitors or new people, or if you are maybe you've not been in this church for like 5 years, maybe you are in Nairobi, you are visiting, they give you a platform, you go there in front to introduce yourself. So if maybe you go there and introduce yourself and say me, I was an atheist and now I'm a Christian, you know, they can say this is a big deal. So and some can just go there if they're there to test the waters, you know, to test the waters and see how the research will react. Like me, I can do that. I can try that and see if can see how they react, you know. So yeah, it's about money. These social pressures is mainly because of money, actually. Mainly because of money. Some people can also be paid. Actually, they can be paid to go and do those shenanigans in front of the church. And you know, when it's that way, the church gets headlines. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So social pressure, I think, is about the life. So, and the people may try to cope with the situation by trying to pretend. So in that, for me, according to what I can see, social pressure cannot make somebody to turn to religion. It's not genuine. If person change to become a religion because of social pressure, maybe because of parents, or because of friend, that is not genuine. It's just like a pretender or a hypocrite, because that is not a good reason even to himself. He know he is lying to himself or to herself. So for social pressure and the other fun reason, I cannot term that person as if he have turned to become a religious, but just a pretender because of social pressure or to avoid the stigma or for the sake of money. So let's hear from them, but I don't know whether Infinite your hand, you have raised your hand or it was previous. Let's hear from Deve as we and the next maybe will be Infinite.
Yeah, thanks, Stano. I'm going to add to the social pressure just a few points, and then I'll leave it at that. Depending on the setting that somebody is in, for their survival, they might need to either pretend like to be just just a Christian in sheep clothing, just for their survival. And in that case, I would say that I would do it. I would be part of that situation, because say you are a lady, a woman in the village where there's a lot of visibility as to who goes to church, who belongs to which pastor and which church, oh my goodness, and which choir. Let me tell you, you have to belong somewhere. Otherwise, you can be very, very isolated. I've seen 2 cases in my village. Either they just didn't care about the isolation, or they didn't want to pretend. And I could see that that they want with the other group. They would be in the groups, in this woman group and that, but they want really, yeah. So it can be very lonely in that situation, particularly for the women. The men, nobody is even bothered whether a man goes to church or not, but they are interested in whether a woman goes to church or not. That's something that, yeah, that is very funny. So and then the visibility. Churches are so visible. I mean, you go, imagine in Kenya. I mean, in Kenya, the churches are very, very, even in godless Canada, churches are still visible. Nothing is going on in the church, but they are still quite visible. And therefore, you can find yourself that if you have a problem, something pressing you, that is, particularly if you were raised in a church or in a religion, you will gravitate towards that. However, if you were not raised in a religion, you will not gravitate there. You will go somewhere else to find your problem. You will find your problem another way. So that is why, and that's also the reason why, having been born in a Catholic church, I found myself a Catholic because I was baptized a Catholic. So if it was something, we all know the reasoning that, well, if it was something else, then I would be in the right religion, whatever that is where I would be born, not just as a mere Catholic. And therefore, if I have a problem, I would be gravitating towards the right church, not just the most visible church that is around me, or the most beautiful ones. Oh my goodness, some of the churches are so beautiful. So I'm talking about the churches, those established churches. Yeah, you go in there and you will actually feel. You will feel. Maybe I was feeling the awe of the architect and the people that did the pictures and all that, but you will definitely feel something. So there could be, and the people who are superstitious, that pull, that awe that I felt might be, they can easily misinterpret. For me, I interpreted it as a respect for Michelangelo, not for any god or Mary or anything, just for the respect of the worker that did the work. Thank you.
Yeah, very nice. So let's hear from Infinite, then Morioki.
So one thing I would say about religion, I would say that if you are really examining the truth, I don't think truth will be based on geography, you know. And if we are talking about religion, I think that where you are born essentially determines what your religion will be. If I was born somewhere else, and if you try to bring this up with them, and that's why I'm saying it always if you get into this discussion with any Christian or any religious person, they will always come down to dissonance. They will just pretend not to get it, and that's when they start pulling out these other arguments from the I don't know arguments that don't make sense, and that's why I'm saying that it's just impossible uh, to after you see the evidence, after the evidence is presented before your eyes and you examine it, it's impossible to unsee that, you see. And if you are going to backtrack and go back to religion, then that might be something that might be something that's wrong with you, you know, because when you start using your logic, so many things open up. You see, your brain is able to grow because the human brain is made to develop. You see, after you were introduced with some new evidence, you try to examine what you know, and from the evidence you're provided, you come up with new findings. But what religion does, it comes up with this absolute truth. You know, you can't just claim to know the truth 100%. You can't be questioned. You see, that hinders development. You see, if what we knew from the Bible, if we stuck to that, then we will never know even how the rain was formed or how we came to get the mountains and all these things. So I feel like it's very important. This truth must be spoken, and this is my first time here, and I'm glad to find that the people who think like me, and yeah, I never thought that there's a place that you could openly speak about this stuff, and yeah, that's all what I have to say. So we'll interact more, and you will get to know what I think about the world and everything. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Let's hear from Morioki, then we can go to the other 2 points. And I also expect to be discussing about the intellectual point of view, intellectual argument.
Okay, thanks, Dano. Am I clear? I've moved somewhere else. Can you hear me clearly? I've changed my position.
You are clear, very clear.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I was saying, I think my point about the music, it's been proved here again, because music is it's an instrument for so much damage. Now I'm saying music really pushes people back to God, and there's evidence to prove it. Music will push people back to God because of the singing, like somebody said, the instruments. It sounds so good. So before you know it, you're back in church just because of the dancing and the music, which is very dangerous because now you're there just because of the excitement of the music. Then also,
Morioki, can I ask you a
yeah.
question?
Yes.
So if you're saying music is bad because it makes people go back to God, should we also say community is bad because it makes people go back to God?
There's a difference between music and community. There's a difference between music and community.
No, in this argument, under this topic, you are making the point that music is bad because it makes people go back to God. So if we are picking reasons that make people go back to God, and we are saying that those things should be outlawed, they should be removed from society because they are bad, then we should apply the same logic to community. We should say community is bad because it makes people go back to God.
But Docas, what's community, Docas? Docas, what's community?
Coming together. What yes, was taking you there? Sindio?
Yeah.
You went back for community.
Yes. How do you compare music and community? How do you compare that? Those are two different things.
Okay, Morioki, continue. Proceed this debate conversation we will not yet.
Then what was I saying? Yeah, then also another thing, I think I mentioned once, this program on TV, it was called Kids Against Crime. It is a program showing criminals changing their behaviors. They are transformed into decent people, and it was Christian. So I got respect for religion. I saw these criminals are going back to God and their behavior changes. So that can also make you go back to God. You see a criminal or a prostitute, they change their behavior. So you can believe that's God's power, and you go back to God. Thanks.
Okay, fine. Fine, Morioki, although I may correct some things because, like for me, sometimes my calling knew I'm atheist, but I normally listen to gospel music, the calm gospel music, and I sometimes I sing them with some emotion, as if it's spiritual, and they claim I'm just mocking, but I tell them I feel better when I'm singing them, and sometimes I put reggae music. Are very good for emotional. They are able to soothe my emotion or to just to change some mood sometimes. So music is very good to me. I think I cannot live even a single day without listening to music, whether it's secular or gospel, because I know, and those things cannot convert me back to Christianity or to religion, because I know you believe something after evidence, not because of those some emotion, funny things, not because of that funny things. So we are going to Dorcas, but swing to Dorcas, we are let's deal with this now. You did not deal with the intellectual reason, like, because the intellectual reason is where we can also say where do everything came from. What about complexity? Can complexity be there without a designer? Those are the some of the intellectual reason. Can infinite regression exist? Those are the intellectual reason that cause some people to go back to religion. For me, I think they make some sense in that. Apart from the other we can say it's just a pretending. You feel social pressure, then you pretend to be a religious. But in this case, some people are being tempted by the intellectual reason for complexity and among other about the higher power, and then come back to the religion. So we are going to deal with the intellectual reason and also personal experience. And the personal experience, we can combine it. Number 4, which is personal experience, we can combine with the last point, which is emotional and spiritual need. Because I feel they are like brother and sister, personal experience and the emotional or spiritual need. So let's hear from Dorcas. And in that point,
Okay.
before you continue, you mentioned Ayan Hasi Ali. And when I look, the reason that caused her to go to Christianity or to be converted to Christianity, he said atheism lack spiritual nourishment, and also they lack meaning of life. According to Ayan Hasi, he think atheism they don't have spiritual, and also atheism they don't be able to provide the meaning of life. Thank you.
I'm trying. Unmute. Okay. I've unmuted finally. So, because those are so many points, let me first concentrate on intellectual arguments. If time allows, I will look at spiritual experience, but I don't think
No,
it will allow.
deal with the intellectual only. Deal with the intellectual
Oh.
only because you have less than 4 minutes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned a couple of them, and generally speaking, what I would say is all the intellectual arguments for God fall short. We have dissected those intellectual arguments under various topics in this society. There was a time we were speaking about whether intelligent design is true. There was a time we said we were talking about how to debate atheists without their holy text. There was a time we discussed whether the God of the Bible is worthy of worship. all of those arguments came out, and they always fall short. Let me get into each one specifically. Objective morality. This one is very common, very common among believers, and our resident apologist, Charles Wandalo, likes to use it so much. He says that you need a God for you to have objective moral values. And my answer has always been the same. There are no objective moral values in the Bible or in all the major religions. They don't have any objective moral values. That is a fallacy. If you go by their holy text itself, it holds divergent, diametrically opposed positions on almost all ethical issues. The issue of killing. The 10 Commandments, it tells you one of them is, thou shalt not kill. But then in another part of the Bible, God commissioned the Israelites to go and annihilate the Amalekites and the Canaanites and the Jebusites and all of the enemies. He told them to go and kill them. And even Jesus himself, some people like to say, oh, Jesus is the Prince of Peace. He tells you to turn the other cheek. But even Jesus said, do not imagine that I came to bring you peace, for I came to bring you the sword. So there are no objective moral values in that book of theirs. Even in their behavior, Christians themselves act very differently when it comes to morally controversial issues. If it is gazing, some Christians are for gazing, others are against it. If it is divorce, some Christians allow it, others do not. They don't have objective moral values. So that point is null and void. It is just an ideal that they tout, but on the ground, it doesn't exist. The other point I had is the problem of evil. The problem of evil should actually make your atheism so strong. There's no argument there. It's hot air. The problem of evil actually shows you how malevolent, how sinister the God of the Bible is, or the God of the major three religions is. How can he allow innocent babies to get cancer? How can he allow people who are guilty of atrocities, people like Hitler or mass murderers or mass rapists, to confess their sins on the deathbed and to go to heaven, to never receive punishment? Yeah. So this is not a good God. He's actually an evil God. Then the other one is on the argument from complexity. Even that one, we have debunked it many times. Actually, the mark of intelligent design is not complexity, it is simplicity. And complexity does not have to come from an intelligent being. Complexity can come from a process. And we have demonstrated that with evolution. There is overwhelming evidence for evolution, and it is a process that led to complex species that we know today as humans and other animals. So even that argument falls short. All the intellectual arguments are null and void. Anybody who says that they went back to God because of intellectual arguments only read apologist websites. They didn't critically look at the arguments objectively. Now, one last thing, I know my time is up. One last thing, that one of community, I needed to say this. I needed to reiterate Eston's point that I think many of these people who go back to God because of community do so for selfish monetary reasons. There's another famous atheist in the US called Teresa McVeigh. She was very active in the atheist experience. She used to show up in that show some time back. And she was also a former pastor. She belonged to the Clergy Project. And when she left the faith, she was stranded because now how was she going to make money? And all her community ostracized her. This is the problem with Christian community. It only supports you when you are one of them. The moment you hold a different opinion, they ostracize you. So they ostracized her. Nobody was willing to hire her. Even other businesses that have nothing to do with religion, they didn't want to hire her. So she had to go to the humanists in America and ask for a job. They decided to pay her for a year. They paid her salary as a pastor for a year. And then she joined humanists in Florida. And there she was pushing for secular church or secular community. But it got to a point where the humanists in Florida didn't have a lot of money because atheists are really few. They didn't have a lot of money. She wasn't making money. She needed to survive. So this woman claimed to have gone back to God like 4 or 5 years later. And she says it's because she became comfortable with not having all the answers. Yet the questions she was asking were these ones: the problem of evil, hurricanes and natural disasters. How can a good God just exterminate all those people? You know, you don't have questions. You don't have answers to that question. But this woman says, no, I decided that it's okay to not have those answers. And I just went back. I didn't buy her reason one bit. It was not intellectual. It was selfish. It was monetary because she went back and became a pastor again. So that's what I had to add on that. Thank you.
Yeah, those are a very nice point. Like for those who are saying about the complexity, the way Lewis was trying to say about the complexity, but for me, I can just evaluate the first topic, the first reason he gave about the influence from his friend. So the other thing are just trying to give some reason that is not holding the water. For me, the main reason I can say maybe is the influence from the friend because of social pressure. So the other point he just put for the sake, because I don't think he was not aware about the complexity when he was still an atheist. So to come to say he was convinced because of what Einstein have discovered about complexity, to me it's just a nonsense. And if we reason about where the complexity came from, we just say we don't know instead of putting the God of the gap fallacy. Let's hear from David.
I will mention briefly, just from an intellectual point of view, somebody going back to God, they will have said that because interaction with God, we know that how we interact with God is not how we interact with the food or with the air we drink or the water we drink or with each other, or even with a tree. A tree, we know that a tree can fall on you, or you can plant a tree and all these things. So we know how we interact with the natural world. But we allow God the latitude of not interacting with us in a way that we know. And that is where the brain is, the human brain is just, I don't know how to describe it, that it allows us faith to interact with something the way that we don't interact with a tree, the way we don't interact with each other, but it allows us to have an interaction with something that we've never interacted with. We create all the interaction and somebody can be intellectually comfortable with that. That is where I just don't know. I just say that is the same way I interact with a fairy tale. That's how I interact with a book that I am reading. A story that was created by somebody, that the people are not real, but it's a very good, engaging story. But once I'm done with it, I know it was a story. It was a story that I was reading in the book to improve my French. So on that level, I always say that one is the reason that I would never go to God. God has to show up and interact with me the way I interact with a tree, the way I interact with everything that I know about. That's To me, that's it. I'll bring it down. I dump it down for myself so that I can understand it. Now, a question for Muriuki. It was about when he said, what was the question? I forget the question. When I remember the question, I'll ask it for Muriuki. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So about interaction, the way like me, or you, I can read a novel, a storybook, and get emotion attached. And sometimes I don't know whether it's my weakness. A tears can come because of that feeling of sympathy or that art that is happening in the storybook. The same case when I watch a drama or a movie. So I know it's not real. It's something. It's just a drama or it's just a art, but you feel connected. So the same case, people when they read maybe the holy this they term it as a holy text. They may feel connected and term that as a spiritual, but it's not spiritual. It's how their brain are. You are being connected to something, either it's bad or it's good. But when you come to religion, you think it's just a Holy Spirit or it's whatever. Yeah. Let's hear from Morioki.
Thanks, Dano. Deve, was the question about music by any chance? Was it music? Deve?
I forget whether it was music or it was the community. I forget which one it was, and I didn't write it down. I'm sorry.
Okay.
If
Okay,
I
fine.
remember it,
Okay.
I'll ask. Thanks.
Okay, fine, no problem. Okay, I need to say about this complexity. Right now, the sun is doing damage to the crops. So people say like God made the world with a plan. Right now, the sun is our enemy. It's shining so bright and destroying all the crops. So now we have to work twice as hard to save our crops from the sun. So it shows the sun is just something we did not plan. It's a star which shines for the sake of it, not for any reason, because it's destroying crops. Meaning the sun came by itself, not made by anyone, because it's doing damage right now. Thanks.
Okay, fine, Morioki. So let's go to our last topics about the emotional or spiritual need. Initially, I said sometime I listen some music, and somehow I feel something. I don't know what I can call that feeling, that emotion. And sometimes it can trigger the tears. So that can I call that emotion? And that is how. Or I can just give a very good example, like during the burial ceremony, or when there is a deceased person. The people close to that deceased person, you find them crying because of that emotion. So, but if that emotion can happen in a religious assembly, they will call it spiritual, or they will call it is a Holy Spirit have visited to those members. But the same feeling when it happened to the burial ceremony, then just say it's just a mourning. Although some people they term it as a spiritual connection between the deceased person and the living. So I don't know how we can say about this, because some people they feel those emotions and think there is higher power is communicating to them, and they end up to go back to the religion. Is it Deve or Dorcas?
It's
Okay.
me because Deve just spoke.
Okay.
Right. Let me tie in that last question with near-death experiences because it has been hanging. It's been hanging from the beginning. Now, there's this guy called Lee Strobel. Lee Strobel used to be an atheist, and he became a believer. This is his quote-unquote testimony. It started when I almost died several years ago. My wife found me unconscious and called an ambulance. I woke up in the emergency room, and the doctor looked at me and said, "You are one step away from a coma, 2 steps away from death." I hovered between life and death for a while there, and I tell you, that's a clarifying experience. At that moment, nothing is more important, and that is why he went back to God. So there's this example, and there have been other examples. There are so many on the internet. In fact, they start as former atheist, former skeptic becomes a believer after near-death experience. In fact, there are channels dedicated to near-death experiences. I've listened to a couple of them, and they all sound like they're reading from the same script. These are individuals that had a mystical experience. I would like to call it mystical. And we had this discussion when we were talking about the soul, because people use near-death experiences as, again, another argument for the soul. Others now use it as an argument for God in the event that they see God or godly creatures during the near-death experience, or in the event that they link that moment before they die, before they almost died, to God saving them. And this was my response during that discussion. It will still be my response right now. The first thing is, I would ask this person, why do we see different supernatural entities when we have near-death experiences? And all of them are based on your culture. If you go to India, a person with a near-death experience will see Lord Krishna. If you go to Tibet, they will see the Buddha. If you come to Africa, some of the people that believe in Enkai or some other traditional god, they're going to see their spiritual beings. So it is a cultural phenomenon, and it is influenced by the religious iconography and imagery in your life. What you've been seeing for many years, that gets encoded in your brain. Then when you have a near-death experience, your brain malfunctions. Exactly what Julius the KP was saying, that at that point, when you have a near-death experience, when you're in a coma, your brain is deprived of oxygen and glucose. So it is malfunctioning. Your brain is at the same level as you being on a drug trip. So you can't trust your brain at that moment. You can't. You see things. You see things that are not there. Yeah. Your brain is suboptimal. So that is not the point when you make a life-altering decision like believing in a God or not. And I would even ask, why is it that this God waits for that time when your brain is severely compromised for him to show up? He's behaving like the child, the naughty child. You know, when 2 children are 2 and maybe they're seated in the back of a car. One is naughty, he's pinching the other, he's beating the other. Then when the parent looks, they stop. Yet this other one who's been beaten, they're like, Mommy, Dennis ananichapa. Yeah. So when the parent looks, they don't see Dennis. So God is behaving that way. When God is being scrutinized by multiple witnesses or under controlled experiments by scientists, God never shows up. He only shows up when your brain is severely compromised and there are no eyewitnesses. There is no corroboration or method of verifying that what has happened is true. It's just a story in the brain. And that's what I would say on the near death experience. And I would also say that we go with an explanation. We go for a physical explanation before we jump to the supernatural, because the supernatural is a mystery. So you cannot appeal to a greater mystery to explain a smaller mystery. The small mystery is the near death experience. You seeing a Jesus or a Buddha or a Muhammad. The bigger mystery is God, who cannot be detected. So you do not appeal to a greater mystery to explain a smaller mystery. We instead use physical explanations that are testable. We are able to recreate the same experiences with drugs, things, psychedelics. If you take psychedelic drugs, it's called the God drug. You can see God in that drug trip. We see it when people have a stroke, when they have undergone surgery, when they have accidents, when they have brain damage or bacterial infection, or if they've been choked. Sometimes either you're being choked because somebody is attacking you violently, or it's being done as a sexual activity. Those people who are into asphyxiation in order to get an orgasm, you also experience the same sensations. You feel like you have an outer body experience and you see things. So if we can recreate the same experience using physical methods, then we don't need to appeal to a mystery, the thing that is undetectable. That's what I have to say on it. It is not a sufficient reason to go back to God.
Nice. So those who are taking the drugs like cocaine, those illegal drugs or strong drugs, they can also turn to religion because they have experienced the spirit. Okay, let's hear from Morioki then, Eston.
Yeah, thanks, Dano. Just a quick point. I've seen very many testimonies where people cry. So again, emotions are a big part of, play a big factor in going back to God. So I've seen so many testimonies that people break down as they say, I used to do this, I was this, then they start crying. So emotions are a big part of going back to God. Thanks.
Okay, nice. But on that, do you know there is other people who are just giving the story, but in the process of giving the story, even if it's not in the church, they find themselves crying through that emotion. So it's part of our human nature. And some people have more emotion than the other. Especially like me, I can laugh and you see my tears coming. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, then I just meant emotions can play a big part in taking people back to God.
Yeah. It's the same that we are talking about the near-death experience. It's the same thing. And that is why we are saying we need those who don't understand how the brain work, they end up thinking there is a higher power that is controlling or those emotions. Let's hear from Eston, then Deve.
I don't know, these near-death experiences are just what I call them hallucinations of people's imagination. You know, someone who is born a Christian, you know, when he experiences this near-death experiences, when I don't know, he's deprived of, don't know if it is oxygen or what now, you know, now he starts hallucinating and now he in his mind, he already, even if he was an atheist or not, he has already, because in his whole life he has been fed with this things that I don't know if you die, there is a heaven. I don't know, you'll be received in the gates of heaven by Moses or what those crap those. So when now you imagine that you are you are going to die anytime, those hallucinations come back, and and you know when you think you're already in heaven already, because of those hallucinations of the imaginations that have been fed in your head for a long time. Let's say let's go to Islam. The Islamic heaven, the way those things have been programmed into their mind. And others who was a former Muslim, if he experiences the same, or even a Muslim, the same Muslim, if he experiences a near-death experience, in his mind he will say that no, he saw Muhammad, or he saw who, or those prophets of the Quran. If it is a Hindu, it will be the same thing. So those near-death experiences, those are just hallucinations of the imaginations that have been fed into someone's head of what will be happen to you after you die. So those are not real. Those are just hallucinations and nothing else. Tano, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, that is good. So, and that we observe because of the different worldview. If we had the only one worldview, we could not be able to do this experiment. But because we have different worldview, there is those who believe in incarnation, there is those believe in Muhammad, Allah, those believe in Jesus, in Christianity, and they all experience that NDE. That is why we are able to get that knowledge. We find you experience your near-death experience according to your own religion or according to the story that you have been hearing. Let's hear from David.
Yes, and in that case, the NDE that we should go after is the NDE of somebody that has not been steeped into what angels look like, what God look like, what Jesus looks like, or what Muhammad looks like. That would be a very valuable NDE. But let me say that when I hear the same story being told of what people saw in their near-death experience, I think of the UFOs. Like those aliens, everybody comes with the alien, they just all look alike. Their shape look alike. Their light looks is blue, bright, and all that. When you listen to that, you think, wait a minute, there is just something that is too manufactured about that, because if NDE is similar to sleep, except in the case of NDE, there's a lot of psychological disturbance. We're not too bothered about what happens when we sleep, but we're so bothered about NDE. But I think it is probably just the same thing. We don't know ourselves. We don't know when we sleep what is going on. So I think that NDE, for there to be like a control, kind of a controlled thing, would be the one of somebody that has not been steeped into religion. Because you go somewhere in the village of Ukambani and ask those kids what Jesus looks like, they will not say Jesus looks like them. So if they are sleeping and they are dreaming, or they have an NDE, that is the Jesus that they will never, will be the Jesus. They will never tell you that angels are black. They'll tell you that angels are white and they wear white. Yeah. So, well, it would be hard to have a control experiment on NDE, because the yeah, the appearance of God, or what God looks like and what angels looks like, is too well known. The same thing with the UFOs. The appearance is way too well known. Thank you.
Yeah, that is great. And on that, there is various tests about the NDE, and some people who are not much religious, we find them seeing the young great or the young grandfather or the people who died. Maybe your sister died during the NDE, you see your sister there, and you start to have conversation with your sister or your brother or your grandfather and so on. So we find those cases. So it's not only about the having experience with the medical, those characters like Jesus that we see on the picture, but also our relative. They also have experience with the relative. So we are still on the topic of personal experience, that is NDE, that some people interpret it as a presence of intervention, presence or intervention religion. And also we have emotion or spiritual need. Some individual may find that their emotion or spiritual need are better met within a religious framework. This could include a sense of community, purpose, or comfort that they didn't find in atheism. For example, like Ahian Hasi Ali saying, atheism lack meaning of life. I don't know how we can talk about that lack of spiritual and the lack of meaning of life about the atheism. Eugene, are you back or you are still working?
Tano, sorry, just repeat the question, Tano. Sorry.
I'm
Just repeat the
asking
question.
about there are those people who claim that they feel they needed some spiritual or the atheism lacks spiritual part. I think is the thing that we are trying to talk about, the emotion, that we have emotion or a human being have emotion. So they feel that as if atheism, there is not that connection of emotion, which they call it as spiritual. And also they feel in atheism, we lack meaning of life, or we cannot be able to define the meaning of life properly, like religion. So in those two reasons, they tend them to embrace religion. Okay, let's start with the Morioki, then Dorcas.
Thanks, Tano. I think on the topic of, I don't know what we're discussing. Then I asked Dave and Dorcas about life after death. If it's a good idea, because it gives the people who are religious hope that this person who has died, they'll see them in the afterlife. But Dorcas and Dave explained very, very well how it's not, it just complicates things. Yeah. But for a believer, it doesn't. That thing of life after death, that I'll see you I'll see you when I die, I'll also see you. It gives them a sense of purpose in life. So I think now they'll say atheists lack that. Yet for them, it gives them this encouragement that this person has died, but one day they'll meet again. So that can keep you with God, because of you'll see this person again when you die. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm done.
What is your take about that? Is it good to comfort people by telling them they will meet their relative or their
No,
friend?
in fact, Dave and Dorcas convinced me, and I agreed with them that it's not real. It's a delusion. It just complicates things. It's not good at all to believe in the afterlife, Because if Andoka said you won't focus on the present moment, you'll think of an afterlife instead of focusing on what's happening right now. So I'd rather be where I am right now. When somebody dies, you're gone. Focus on what you have right now. Don't think of an afterlife. Thanks.
I think that is a good explanation. So let's hear from Dorcas.
Okay. Spiritual experience. Yes, that is a common one, especially for the most prominent and recent reconvert. That is Ayan Hasi Ali. In fact, it was her therapist who suggested this because the therapist said, Ayan, maybe these other conventional methods of mental health treatment are not working because you are spiritually bankrupt. And she asked her to explore Christianity. And that's something Ayan has reiterated in subsequent interviews, that atheism would simply focus on logic and debates and intellectual arguments, but it would not nourish you spiritually. Now, I have a problem whenever people bring up that aspect, because even the base word spirit is a fictional idea. There is no such thing as a spirit. What believers attribute to a spirit is actually just very strong emotions. The emotions that overwhelm you, that make you feel like either you are very ecstatic or like you are feeling so melancholic until you get to a point where you want to cry. You're, oh my gosh, it's just so overwhelming, and now they call that spirituality. Or the other things that they attribute to nurturing your spiritual life, all of them are either a social, they either refer to a social aspect or an emotional aspect. That is it. Yeah. So when she says that she was able to experience that inner sense of spirituality, I'm like, what is that? What is that? Is it inner joy? Is it peace? Yeah, and self-acceptance. Those ones, those are emotions. Those are emotions. And they're not evidence for God. They're not. So what we need to do as secularists is to come up with alternatives for secular people that can foster that sense of peace or that sense of self-acceptance and inner joy. And I put it to you, we already have them. I think, unfortunately, the face of atheism has always been this tough intellectual conversations and debates. It's very, I would even call it masculine. Yeah, maybe that's even one reason why we have such few female atheists, while the church is flooded, or religion is flooded with females, because females tend to resonate a lot with emotion, or a place that has that strong sensory experience, and even that sense of community and support and acceptance. So we need to explore this other side of atheism, which is humanism. Where humanism and also psychotherapy. Those are the alternatives. Psychotherapy will teach you self-acceptance. It will teach you how to be at peace with the surroundings that you have, and self-love. And then we also need to provide each other a community. We need to hold each other down, each other when we are down. So community, the social aspect, and that is the humanist aspect as well. I think it is very important. However, as I said, this Ayan Hasi Ali, I also think she's a grifter. at the bottom, at the foundation of most of these reconversions to God is a grift, is a scam. Ayan Harsi Ali, initially she wrote an article to, I don't know, one of the major magazines out there or newspapers. I don't know if it was New York Times or what, where she outlined her reasons for becoming a Christian. And one of them was to fight wokeism and Islamic extremism. So she initially was saying it was for political reasons. And in fact, they're inviting her in droves in the Christian circles. They're inviting her to come and give talks. Oh my gosh, a former atheist. Hey, she's joined our camp. This is a win. We need to flex that muscle as Christians. So she's getting invited to these talks. She's doing debates against Islamists as a Christian, and they're paying her. And she's also written a book. That's where the grift is. She's written a book to tell you about why you, as an atheist, you need to go back to God. So that Ayan Hassim and all those reasons she's giving, we have debunked all of them. And I think at the baseline is just a grift. She just saw that the money is where the Christians are. And she's writing books and she's doing talks. Lastly, I know I've spoken for long. Lastly, this issue of purpose.
On that, yesterday I asked AI whether Ayan believe Bible is the word of God, and the AI respond, "Sorry, I can't talk about political issue."
Oh my gosh! I can't. Even AI is sensitive. Yeah, so I think at the heart of it, like, you can't have seen the light, quote unquote. You can't have peeked behind the curtain and seen that this is a magic trick. It's not real magic, and then go back to believing in magic. No, I refuse to. I refuse to believe that it is genuine. But this is what she's saying anyway. So, lastly, it's that issue of purpose. She said atheism doesn't give you purpose, but Christianity gave her purpose and meaning in life. And I think this is again another successful PR exercise. These Christians are so good at floating around ideas and claiming that they have the answer when it's a fake answer. So they tell you that we'll give your life purpose. What's that purpose? If I can even ask, what is the purpose that Christians give you? They usually claim it is that you are a child of God. You are there to worship God. So how is that unique? How is that edifying? I prefer the secular version, the non-religious version. In the non-religious version, you assign meaning to your life. There is no overarching meaning. The universe doesn't give a shit about your life. It is you to decide the meaning that you assign to your life. I find that to be liberating because it will be aligned with my interests, my capabilities, my resources, and the needs in my community. That is how I find purpose. So none of those reasons that Ayan Harsi Ali gave are satisfactory, and I just think she's a scammer who is going where the money is, and that's among Christians. Thank you.
Yeah, very nice. I want you to read the contribution of Eugene from the chat. Then we can go to Eston. Dorcas, you can read that document or that post from message aloud.
I'm sorry. The question was addressed to me.
Yeah, I'm talking to you to read that that post of the Eugene allowed about near-death experience.
Okay. Here it is. Emotions. Okay, I'm seeing something from Dennis. I'm seeing something. Two new message. Okay, yeah, here it is. So Eugene is saying, I'm not able to talk at the moment. I'm on night call, but about NDEs, I think they are fascinating phenomenon that can be explained through a combination of physiological, neurological, and psychological processes. While some interpret NDEs as glimpses of an afterlife, scientific research suggests they result from the brain's response to extreme stress, oxygen deprivation, neurotransmitter surges, and temporal lobe activity. Current evidence indicates that NDEs are deeply rooted in brain function rather than supernatural causes. Great. Yeah. So let's go with the natural cause before jumping to the supernatural one, because this one, as he has said, is explained by stress, oxygen deprivation, temporal lobe activity, and neurotransmitter surges. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That is a powerful message that we have also been discussing about. And welcome, Dennis. So we are about to conclude. We are to end the end. So
thanks for welcoming me. Sorry, I came a bit late. I had some issues, but I've been following a lot of stuff that you guys have been contributing. Quite informative, and I appreciate.
thank you. So you are also welcome. We have been discussing about the reason that those who left the atheism they gave, the reason why they left atheism to become religious, and one we find is the reason is the social pressure, intellectual reason, where they engage with the possibility of higher power or complexity. They also engage with the personal experience, like NDE, near-death experience, and some they say they lack the spiritual or emotion support, and
Okay.
the lack of meaning of life in atheism.
Okay, I get you very much. And there's also a point that we need to take into consideration. It's very much to do with upbringing. Most of us, as you might have well known, especially in Africa here, where most of these religions that have actually taken over and they control Africa are largely foreign. So they have tools to actually mold our level of thinking, how we interact with our societies. So to that effect, we grow up realizing that if we can try to move out of this cocoon, then we are lost. It is this really, which you have actually already mentioned, social pressure, that creates that level of challenge that people tend to come back to say, maybe I'm lost. Let me go back to where I came from. I agree 100%. It's very sad that we are passing through this social pressure at this level of time. Thank you very much, Dorcas and the team, Marioki, Juliana, Maestro. It's quite very informative.
And Dennis, on that point,
every time I join this discussion, I always get something new.
Thank you. On that point, Dennis, do you think those who turn to religion, back to religion because of social pressure, they are genuine or they are just pretending to be religious? Those who turn back to religion,
yeah, very true.
Are they genuine or a pretender?
No, they are pretenders because, okay, the issue here, okay, largely sometimes I give them an edge. it's lack of information. Okay, some of us, we spend quite a lot of time reading. We can narrate the whole history of, for example, the Christendom history. We can narrate it on a palm of a hand. So we know how some of these jargons have been created to protect the faith over time. Some people don't have that much of knowledge. They just jargon left, right, and they go on. This also contributes to how strong some people are and some are weak in the society. So yeah, there's a lot of facts that play into that level of argument. Yeah.
Nice one. So now we can just try to conclude by trying to evaluate or by trying to our own opinion to see whether those people who have left atheism to become religious, either Christianity or Islamic, are they genuine or are just pretending for other advantage or for other reason that they may get some advantage for living atheism, or maybe they are trying to protect their identity or their business or other thing in terms of political. Or you may think there is some people who are genuine, who have turned to religion because they are very genuine, apart from other reason. So, Morioki?
Thanks, Tanu. Can I ask Dorcas a question?
Proceed.
Yeah, Dorcas, you know Lady So. Dorcas, do you know her? Lady,
Who?
do you know Lady So? Lady So, the dancehall artist. Lady So. Do you know her?
Give me one song she sang.
Okay, just leave. Forget it. It's okay. It's okay. 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 She's an artist. She got born again. She was a dancehall artist. She was very explicit sexually. Then she got born again. She's a born again Christian. Yeah. So I'm just saying, these people are like that. When you read about them, they grew up in church. Most of us grew up in church. So as you get older, when life gets hard, just go back to church because of the comfort. So my view is upbringing. From a very young age, you're told about God, about Jesus. So when you get older, life gets hard, you go back to how you were when you were a kid because of the comfort it gave you. So I think it's a key fact growing up in church. Thanks.
Yeah, fine. You are just repeating what Dennis have said, and that is a great idea. So let's hear from Deve.
Thank you. So for me to conclude, I would say that what it would take me now in person to go back to religion, it could be pressure, a certain pressure from just social or culture or social pressure, okay, community, to make life livable. But I would still be having the same questions. I would just sit on them. Therefore, I would just be an atheist in sheep's or in theist clothing. And I think that is a situation that is held by a large majority of these 60% of religious people in the world, or rather, I think 60% or so are religious in the world. And I'm sure that is something that they held because you have got these questions. You know that some of these things do not make any sense, but you still go with it because to make your life easy. So I think that for me that would be the only situation. Well, it may be not the only situation. The other situation would be if God showed up, but not for me only. God would have to show. Otherwise, I might be thinking and I hear things. That is one question that psychiatrists ask people. They ask people if you hear things, if you see things, just to try to see if you are in reality. So if you say you hear things or you see things, well, the first question is it something that other people see to ascertain the reality? If you are talking about reality, because if you are saying that you can see something and I can't see it, then one of us is not in reality. So if God showed up, and not only could I see God and other people could see God and we could interact, then hey, wow, why would I be arguing with it? I would be arguing with God and saying, well, how do you do things? So how can you do something like this? How can you do ABCD like that? You should have done it this way. Maybe you should do it this way. Maybe there should be no measles. Maybe there should be no polio or whatever, all these things. Yes. So the argument would change because now we are interacting, we would be interacting with God. We can even put God under the microscope and study the DNA and see if actually God is like us. I would be on my way to being religious. Thank you.
Yeah, that is very nice, but I think there is another something that I forget about the gap of infinite regression. There is those who consider that I think I'm wrong to be atheist because infinite regression is not possible. So there must be somewhere things or life started. And they end up saying there is maybe there is possibility, there is a God, deity somewhere who started things. So they, instead of becoming skeptical, they end up believing there is deity for the sake. So what can we say about those people who end up believing maybe there is possibility of a deity? Yeah, and Dorcas?
Just a moment. Do you mean, for example, when somebody says that God created all these, there cannot be something without having a creator, and then we say who created the creator? That's the one that you're talking about, yeah?
Yeah. Because there is those, for example, those who are saying that the complexity cannot happen by randomly. There must be a designer. So they put that thing up and they say there is possibility there is a designer somewhere. Okay, Dorcas, proceed.
Okay. Let me give my response about infinite regress and then conclude on this idea of atheists going back to God. Now, infinite regress. When somebody goes back to God because of the idea of infinite regress, I think they're guilty of a logical fallacy called special pleading, where they say that God is immune from being created, that he just is. In order for there not to be infinite regress, when you ask them who made God, and it means that there must be another God that was there. And so they say, no, God just was there. He's eternal. He's beyond time, place and space. Time, material, and space. He's above it. So that's what they say. But what they're doing is they're special pleading for God, and they have no evidence for making that assumption that God is the starting point of the regression. What if what started the regression was a molecule that occurred before the Big Bang. We don't know. No one knows. The Christians don't know. The Muslims don't know. The atheists don't know what happened before the Big Bang. We can just postulate and hypothesize and say, perhaps it was that molecule that, or that, not molecule, but that dense energy, that, what is it? What do I call it? That dense singularity. Yes, that's the word. Perhaps it is that singularity that started off the causal chain. And, or perhaps we had other multiple universes. We don't know. And this is the distinction between skeptics and believers or religious people, is that when we don't know as skeptics, we concede that we don't know and we leave it there. You don't label it as God. But the Christians, when they don't know, they throw in God. Yeah, so it's a false way of knowing. There's a problem with their epistemology because they just make assumptions. They're using an argument. In fact, the whole concept of intellectual arguments, that those are sufficient enough for somebody to go back to God, I think that is fallacious. I think that's a bad method of making decisions. Because no matter how elegant an argument is, it is not proof. It's not evidence for God. We can imagine, we can philosophize and theorize very many arguments that make it so plausible that a God exists. But if there's no evidence, it's just an argument. It's not evidence. So that's what I would say on the infinite regress argument, and on any intellectual arguments are not proof for God. The only reason that should take you back to God is evidence.
On that, what about those who are using the word possibility without indirectly saying there is in deity?
Okay, so again, this is another distinction between a skeptic and a non-skeptic. The skeptic holds evidence as the filtering mechanism. It is evidence that will cause you to change your mind. So, and I like to use this mantra a lot as skeptics. The time to believe a claim is when there is proof and not a moment sooner. You don't go with the possibility. It could be possible. It could be likely. If you don't have evidence, then don't believe it. Just be agnostic. Just be agnostic. Say, yes, it's possible there might be a God. It's possible there might not. But you don't go with likelihood and to rally your position. That will make you vulnerable to all manner of bad ideas. You'll fall for any bad idea as long as you're like, probable, maybe. When I eat my food, the reason why it becomes soft is because there are thousands of invisible tooth fairies inside there that mash it into soft components, and they're between my teeth, and then I swallow. Is it possible? It's possible. It's possible. But is there evidence? No. The time to believe a claim is when there is proof and not a moment sooner. So that's what I would say. That's what I would say to those people. Even Ayan Hassi Ali claimed, she accused atheists in one interview with Alex O'Connor. She accused atheists of us being closed-minded. We're not open to the possibility of a God. No, we are not closed-minded. We have really looked for this God. We just don't see evidence for him. So don't make decisions based on probability. go with facts, go with proof. Now, generally on this conversation that we've had about atheists going back to God, I can't say that all of them are disingenuous or dishonest. Not all. There are some people, there are two categories in my book. There are some people who are grifters. They are scammers who only go back to God superficially. In their heart of hearts, they know there's no such thing. It's fictional. But they go back because they need to earn a living. Or they go back because the political winds are leaning towards believers, religious people. So they go there in order to make money. I told you, I believe Ayan Hasi Ali is a grifter. She's already written a book about her reconversion to the Christian God. She's selling and she's being paid to do conferences. So there's that category. There are people who go back because there's money to be made. They're not sincere. Or there are those who go back because of, it might not be monetary benefits, but social benefits. Like that one who goes back because their spouse is a religious person and she says she cannot marry someone who is an atheist. So he just claims to be a believer, but in his heart of hearts, he's not. He's just putting on a facade, it's a mask. So there's that category. Then there's a second category of people who are actually sincere about their belief. And under this category, there are two categories. There are two subcategories in this category of sincere reconverts. There's one that consists of people who had superficial knowledge of atheism, who are not skeptics. They didn't know about the teleological argument, the ontological argument, the morality argument. They've never been exposed to those things. They didn't know about scientific inaccuracies in the Bible or about immoral things in the Bible. They didn't know. Then they just decided to leave God, So they were misinformed. And those are the people that go on to commit logical fallacies in their reasoning when they go back, because they're encountering these arguments for the first time and they're only listening to the apologist side. They're not listening to the skeptic side. So there are those people, they were never informed. Someone like me, I've seen through the grift. So at going back, unlikely. And then the last category under those genuine ones are the ones who have a personal experience with so-called God. They have a spiritual encounter. So we talked about near-death experiences, but we also talked about other people who said that they experienced a sense of joy, acceptance, peace, etc. And what I can say to that is that it is just anecdotal evidence. It's the worst form of evidence. If you go to a scientific conference and you start talking about my personal experience, everybody will walk out. You need to apply it to a large population and it needs to be controlled. You need to control the variables so that others don't interfere. Yeah, such that now we can say it is verified and scientifically tested, that experience that you had with God. Because your brain can lie to you. Our brains are so fickle, and they deceive us. When we have dreams, we are deceived. When we have hallucinations, we are deceived. When we have the near-death experiences, we are deceived. When we are under the influence of alcohol or we've just had an accident, we are deceived. You can't trust your brain. That's why it has to be applied to an entire population and it has to be scientifically verified. So those personal experiences, they're anecdotal evidence, the worst form of evidence that has not been scientifically verified. That is my long take on this discussion. Thank you.
Very nice and very strong point. Now I think we can come to an end. Anyone who have something to say? Morioki? And anyone else?
Okay, thanks, Dano. For me, just to prove there's no God, why would God make a rain? You know, rain is also a problem. Because like when it rains in the streets, we get traffic jams, we, 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 we get wet, people get sick, it gets muddy. So rain and sun are very destructive. If you get good rain, you're lucky. If you get good sun, you're lucky. Because by 1 o'clock, the sun is burning hot. You have to hide from the sun. So why would a person create a sun and water that causes so much damage? Because the rain, when you get good rain, you are lucky. So it just rain just rains and the sun just shines. So these things just happened by themselves. Thanks.
Okay, fine. Do you have another person who want to say something before we conclude?
Yeah, you know, a lot of us, we tend to get hold of our societies in a manner that we feel we are left out. Like in our culture here in Malawi, we have issues to do with when there's a, I don't know whether in Kenya it's also the same. When we have okay, people have died, so we go there, we do the normal ceremonies and stuff. People sing and all that. Some people, when they are in a group of ours, they feel that their death will not be celebrated in that manner. This has been seen to be an issue greatly affecting atheists and humanists. They feel that when they are dead, nobody is going to play for them. Nobody will sing songs, and they will go like dogs in the streets, like animals where they die. This also contributes to how people fast tend to start moving out of atheism and they go back to religious beliefs. I also largely blame the atheist fraternity, not really blaming them directly as such, but I think it's lack of organization. It's very difficult to organize atheists and put them into a system where we can be supporting each other like the religious fraternity does. For us, it's quite a challenge because we live like in an island. I don't know, Maestro, if what I'm saying or David, you can agree with me, atheists into one listening fraternity. We are a big group of listening people. It becomes quite a challenge to put them together. So our friends, because they take them like ships, if you may agree, Marioke, you find that they are taken like ships and they follow whatever you tell them. For us, it's not an easy thing. And this is just what I wanted to contribute to that. Going forward, as atheists, we need to create a fraternity, we need to create a community, we need to create a grouping with standard systems and the procedures and whatever, supporting each other so that people have a hand, have a shoulder to cry on. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I think what you are saying is about religions, they are able to come together because they are being united by dogma. But we as atheists, we don't have dogma. So if we create even some rules, many people will not see we do not see them making sense. But for religions, because there is dogma, they feel there is a punishment from higher power. So they try to unite. That is why they are more united than atheists, and why it's very difficult to unite as atheists. But we can try all we can to see whether we can reduce that gap. Morioki, you have something?
Yeah, a small thing about what Danny said about death. We should teach ourselves that when you die, you're gone. your value counts when you're alive. Your most valuable time is when you're alive. When you're alive, when you die, you're gone. So let's not put too much value into funerals, like Dennis is saying. Because they say that when you die, you'll be treated like a wild animal. So what? It matters when you're alive is what matters the most. When you die, you're gone. Thanks.
Then that can only happen if atheists are being informed enough. And there is also a certain problem because our relative, they don't consider that. So you may think, well, if you are dead, you become useless, or when your relative died, it's become useless. But your relative or the society, your society does not recognize that. So they will still come to do something. That is why Dennis is saying you feel people are running away from you if you are not religious. So unless we form our own community, when a certain disaster comes, we can be able to come together in unity and do something for a certain thing, because we need that social cohesion, or social what? We need that compassion from people. That is why Dennis is trying to say it's good to unite to make that.
Yeah, I understand. No, let's put more value into life. Instead of focusing on death, let's put.
Yeah, I understand. But what about the disease?
Yeah, maybe like the Muslims, make it simple. Like the Muslims do, keep it simple. Don't complicate things with the expensive coffins, expensive clothes, expensive funerals.
Morioki,
Make it simple. Yeah.
I'm talking, what about the other problem like disease?
Or
Where maybe we
you
need the
said
harambe and whatever. Yeah.
okay, yeah. See, yeah, now there you're alive. See, yeah, now there you're alive. You want to stay alive. That's different. You're not dead. You're alive. That's different. We want to keep you alive. We want to keep you here.
And you need a community for that. For that is support.
True, yes, true.
Emotional
True,
support.
that's true, yeah. True, I agree.
That is why Dennis is
true.
trying to
I agree.
advocate. Yeah. So, Ndeve, you have something to add
Yeah,
on
that's
that?
true. I agree.
Yes, the community. Yes, the community part is very, very important, because we still have family that are still in a religion, and but usually a will can help to guide what your family will do. Because for example, Stano, you don't want your family to spend all what you have earned, putting you in a golden coffin, and then leave your children without school fees. I'm just right now I'm dealing with a situation that's going back in my village with my sister and my niece, and they just can't afford what they are spending. But I still had to give them money and like, don't spend this money. But you can, yeah. They look at that's what you're looking at. You're looking at it differently. That somebody's going to go into a golden casket, but they just didn't. They have got a child in school. But so anyway, but that is where a will comes in, and then you still let your family grieve, you still let your family bury you, but you have got a will to protect you from their whatever they might want to do with you. That is where now our community, an atheist community, can come in. But yes, like you have said, we do not have any dogma to guide us, so we have to create our own guiding rules and standards. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Deve. So I think we have come to an end. So unless, Dorcas, you have something to say, and if you have something, just try to make it maybe 1 minute, then we can end our today's discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, for taking us through that session. It was quite eye-opening. I'd like to thank everybody that participated. There were those who started with us, but I think sleep got the best of them. Chilwave, Julius the KP, and Brian, I think his username was Infinix. They left early, but they made such profound contributions. And then thank you to those who are still with us. El Maestro, thank you for your contribution. Thank you, Ndeve, so much for all the ideas you have shared with us. Morioki, and of course, Dennis, who's joined us slightly later, Luchaveleli on the charts, and the moderator himself. You guided the discussion very well. Guys, I'd like to remind you tomorrow, our chair, Maurice Secular Kenyan, is having a meeting, a YouTube stream with Skeptic Haven from South Africa. We're talking about why it is hard to decolonize Christianity. We have just shared, I believe, Eston, you've shared the flyer on the group, right? Okay, maybe Eston has also dozed off, but I think he was.
No, I'm not dozed off. I've shared.
Oh, great. Thank you for that. Yes, so please check out that flyer at 9 p.m. Kenyan time, East African time. South African time is 1 hour, 1 hour behind. So maybe 8 p.m. their time. Yeah, join us and let's dissect why it is so hard to decolonize religion. I wish you guys a lovely night. See you in the next one.
Good night.
Good morning.